Hey, friends, welcome back to the Big Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Tricia Brouk, founder of the Big Talk Academy, award winning director, producer, and author, and this is episode 590. Today, I'm in conversation with the amazing Debbie Allen. Debbie is an award winning entrepreneur, best selling author of 8 books, and the world's #1 authority on expert positioning. She's been featured in 4 motivational movies and dozens of publications, including Entrepreneur Magazine, Personal Branding, Sales and Marketing Excellence, Forbes, The Washington Post, and USA Today. Debbie has 4 decades of in the trenches entrepreneurial wisdom and business building experience that she now shares with business owners, speakers, coaches, consultants, and experts across many industries. You're going to love this conversation. I sure did. All right, everybody, let's do this. Debbie, I am so excited to have you as a featured guest today on the Big Talk. Welcome.
I'm thrilled to be here. Let's do some big talking.
Yes, let's do some big talking. Well, you are a speaker and an author and an expert in many things. And before we kind of dive into all of those details, I would love for you to take us back a little bit and share with our listeners what brought you to this point in time, literally today. And you can take us as far back as you like, Debbie.
Well, I'll just go back to the speaking part of it. That was 27 years ago. I joined a National Speakers Association, and at that time wanted to be a paid speaker and rose to the top of one of the highest paid women speakers in the world. My certified speaking professional, which is about 3 to 5%. I think it's about 3% of women that have actually achieved that honor, which basically means you worked a lot and you got it going. But even before that, I had no idea it was a business. I didn't start being a speaker like at all. Like who would know that 27 years ago, right? I came from my background, my expertise, and at that time it was building and selling retail clothing stores, women's clothing stores, and I didn't want to sell my. I sold my last stores. Like what's my next chapter? And I had so many years of experience in that, and I realized that especially the small independents, smaller businesses weren't having that support with seminars and having mentors and coaches back then, right? And so it only made sense for me to help because I got a mentor. Actually a group of mentors very early on when I was in the clothing business. Do nothing. First year in business, I made like $100,000. That's gross sales, like pitiful, and took it to 2.5 million within a couple of years with the help of mentors. So it made me want to be a mentor. It made me want to give back. So I started this, the big talk basically from wanting to just support people and wanting to see other people get successful, especially again, the small business was kind of my niche back then. Then I just fell in love with marketing and then, niched my speaking business into marketing. And that's changed a few times over the years.
That's incredible. And I highlight for our listeners, anybody who listens to me in this podcast knows that 27 is a very special number to me. And the fact that that is the year 27 years ago is when you began, it just gives me goosebumps because there's so much about that number that is powerful and important to me. And so clearly we are meant to be having this conversation today. So I want to thank the universe and probably my girls, Lola and Bella, for setting this up because they always remind me that they're here supporting me. So, Debbie, that's powerful. I want to also talk about the power of being in the top 3% of highest paid female speakers. So many of our community members are, first of all, afraid to ask to be paid anything. And second of all, can't imagine aspiring to the level that you have reached. Talk a little bit about what is required. First of all, what does the top 3% mean? Are we talking 250,000 K a keynote? And how did you get there and how did you stay there?
Yeah, well, back then it was, the way the national speakers is built out. It's like you have to have 100 different clients in a period of 5 years. You've had to make this amount of money, whatever that was back then. Probably when I first started, I was making $250,000 just speaking to associations. That was before I ever did keynotes, just association work. And then you get into keynotes, and then you start raising your fee, and it's great, and your bigger audiences, but you eventually become like a road warrior. So the being a top 3% means you're booked a lot, means you're speaking a lot. You actually have a very successful full time career, and it's sad to think that a lot of people that consider themselves professional speakers typically don't make as much as you would think. They're not really out there making it as a very lucrative career. And the thing about the speaking business is it's not really built for that. So over the years, we've discovered that you can't. You're almost punished for being too successful because if you're a successful keynote or you're on the road all the time, you don't have a life. And I was single then, and I did a 3-year world tour. I mean, I've had amazing experiences, but I realized that even the financial crisis of 2008, when the business dried up, kind of like it did with COVID, the pandemic, there's got to be other things. You use speaking in a different way. So I consider myself an expert who speaks professionally, and then there's many, many income streams that I have built from that with the skill of speaking, and that's really what made my business so lucrative is taking that skill and shifting it, not being the paid professional speaker. That's just one income stream, and it's a small puzzle piece in the whole way that you can use speaking to generate income. It's basically, you think about it, it's communication, whether you're on a stage, whether you're online, whether you're writing a book, or you have a course. It's just, sharing your information, your expertise in different forms.
I love that because you are the credible expert in positioning and marketing. And I also think that you have succeeded so amazingly with being able to have books, have speaking, have your online work and your mentoring be your lucrative income. What can you share with our listeners about anybody who's listening who would fear, well, that's too many things. How am I going to be able to do all of that?
Right. You start with a brand foundation. What are you going to be an expert at? And then own that space. Pick a lane, own the space, build a brand and a website and your messaging all around that. Like, I'm, coined as the world's number one authority on expert positioning. Uh, but I took that title myself because I've been called the expert of experts for years. I've been teaching this model for over a decade. So that might be a big claim. I'm the world's number one for somebody, right? But the thing is, how you position yourself in your marketing is going to give you the opportunities. That's always the key. And a lot of people that get into the business, oh, I just want to be a speaker. I'm just passionate. I want to help people. I want to motivate them. Well, what's that mean, right? Motivation is fleeting. It's like you have to have real content and you have to really be known for something. And I think more than even before as speakers, because there's so many more competitive, what really sets you apart and what does that. And then when you find that up front, or when you have to reinvent and then find it, because I've reinvented many times, is then you go faster because you cannot be a generalist. It's just, even look at the economy now. We have low end and we have high end. Our economy is booming at the high end. And in the middle, everything is just really weak. We can't be in the middle. We've got to position ourselves to be the best that we can be so that we are getting those high level clients. We are getting those high level speaking opportunities. We are selling high level coaching programs. That is really the way to go. Otherwise, you're another commodity and you're going to compete with a lot of people getting into this market. And as you know, Tricia, it's like there are so many people getting in the coaching business now. It's like bigger than ever before. And so everybody thinks I can be a coach, I can be a speaker, but you have to run it like an entrepreneur. You have to run it like a real business, and you got to keep investing in yourself. And that's, I think for me, it was investing in mentors. Like I got to know this piece, and I got to know this piece, and I got to get better. I was not the sharpest tack in the book. I barely got through high school. Never went to college, but that's my zone of genius because I built many multiple businesses that were very successful, and I'm a true entrepreneur. My first business I bought at age 19. So, I used to hide that I didn't have that knowledge. And I think that people are sometimes waiting. I got to research more. I've got to have that certificate. I've got to have that. It's all got to be perfect before I launch. And it's like you need to be yourself and authentic. You need to find your own voice. And I think that, finding your own voice, and I know that's a big thing for you, you're going to probably ask me about that, is like, even how did I find my voice? How did I know that I was really on the right track? And I think that's really the key. You kind of know when it shifts.
Well, let's go there. Let's actually go directly there. When did you find your voice? And I want to go back to how to be the best that we can be, what it means to invest in mentors. And before we do, what was it? What was that catalyst for you finding your voice, Debbie?
Well, it was one of my mentors actually that and not a typical like business mentor. Barbara DeAngelis is her name. She's written many New York Times best-selling books. She's mostly a spiritual, personal development type of coach, although she's very business wise and an incredible speaker, how she can just like reach out to the audience and like grab their heart. Like you don't even know,
Mm.
and then she can sell you in the back of the room. And you're like, what did I just sign up for? I don't know, but I want to be with her. Like you just follow her. Like she's just,
Right, it doesn't matter as long as we're together, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, I started working with her as my personal mentor and, for personal life stuff. And then, she said, and I had been in the speaking business about 8 years, was successful, just still doing association work, hadn't got into more of the keynote yet. And she said, Deb, you're a good speaker. But, and because she was speaking at my events, so she's heard me speak. She was with me a lot. And she said, but you haven't tapped in. And I said, "Well, Barbara, that's what you do. You tap in. You do the heart stuff." And it's like, "I'm business." She said, "No, no, no. It doesn't matter if you're business. You connect your head and your heart together, and you connect those two together and reach out to your audience, and you'll know when you've tapped in." And I'm like, "Well, how do I do that? Like, is there a system? Is there a button I push, right?" And then I started understanding what she meant is that connection of the heart versus I was too heady. I'm really, might be smart about what I'm talking about, giving a lot of content. I think I'm helping people because that's business. It's going to be very serious in my head. But then when I connected those two together and related to an audience, the shift was dramatic. Like I can almost remember the day, an event where I was at in Vegas speaking, where I just felt that tap in and I felt the audience feel it. And I never looked back. And I just kept learning how to even become more authentic and more how to tap into reading an audience and reaching out to them much more than just a talking head.
I love that. We refer to that as dropping in. And so it's that same sense of it's like the truth of the
Mhm.
connection is created. And describe to our audience and to our listeners, Debbie, what that felt like in your body when you realized in that moment, oh, I just tapped in and I am deeply connected to them energetically. Share with us what that felt like
Mhm.
in your body.
It felt like really freeing and really just totally authentically me. Like it's okay. Because when you first learn to speak, you're learning like, okay, I gotta have this platform skills. I gotta learn. You're in all this heady stuff. What are they gonna think about me? Is my outfit okay? And you just forget about all of that, and you're like there. You know your stuff. You trust that you know your stuff. If everything goes
Mm.
wrong around you, doesn't matter. You can keep going, and you know your stuff. And that feeling of them like leaning in, like, I could actually see it, but I could feel it in my body, like almost like chills. And I've learned to be very intuitive since then of reading even my personal clients, very intuitive when they'll say something like, that's it. That's the thing. Right. And so I think that came from me learning that, dropping in whatever we want to call it, getting to the
Right.
realness of who we are, I think.
Yeah. This differentiates you from other speakers because you do want to create that deep connection. And I think like you said, and what we briefly touched upon before we went live, is that there's a lot of people out there who are coaching, and there's a lot of people out there who are speaking. And you, as the number one world authority on expert positioning, there is a truth that's missing from many people who are in the space now when it comes to coaching and when it comes to speaking. So when you think about being an authority on expert positioning, how do you translate that to people who come to you and say, I want to be an expert, I want to be positioned? Do you Does that align with your values? And when it comes to being authentic and your values, how do you accomplish both for your clients?
Mhm. Well, I wouldn't say that people come to me for that. They don't come to me and say, I want to be an expert and positioned because that's the end result, like what they get. They need that in their marketing. They don't know that they want that. They want to share a message. They want to make money. They want a successful business that really impacts lives. So they're leaving their legacy every single day and excited about the people they're making a difference with. And then because they're there, those are the kind of people that I like to work with and they're very coachable. Like I just had a prospect this morning that sold into a program, and she's like, I'm trying to be a perfectionist. I got to get all this stuff done. I've done all this research, and I'm like, how much money are you making your business? Nothing, right? Because she's focused. I said, you're done researching, and she's like, well, I got to, I'm just like, I think I was a perfectionist. I'm like, that's costing you so much money. You can't be perfect, right? You just have to launch, and you need to get it as good as you can. And obviously, you've been stuck, and that's another reason they come work with me is they're stuck. They don't know what their message is because they're so close to it that
Mhm.
to me it's so obvious, right? But because I've been doing this for long, but they don't see it. And I know even ourselves, it's hard to see what's the most obvious that, why are people not getting it? Why are they not investing with me? Why are they not doing that? And so most of them come to me because, again, they want to make this a business. A lot of them, I think, fight the idea of being an expert. Oh, I don't want to really be an expert yet. I'm not ready for that level, right? So they're saying, yes, I've got this body of knowledge. And so, in a conversation I have with somebody, it's like, I might make sure that they are really have enough knowledge. They've already written the book. They've already done speeches on it. They've done all this stuff and they're still not considering themselves an expert. I'm like, that's a hurdle you got to get over because, if you don't consider yourself the expert, somebody's going to come behind you and do it. And I think this all started way back, Trish, is like when I started writing the book on Confessions of Shameless Self Promoters, teaching people how to promote themselves. I was a true entrepreneur. You have to learn to toot your own horn. You got to learn to believe in yourself even before you believe in yourself. Like you just got to keep putting yourself out there. And I think that's what the survivals, in this business, not only survive but thrive, do whatever it takes and keep putting yourself out of there because a lot of rejection in this business. And I don't take it as rejection. I'm like, well, next. Maybe they're not the right audience or you haven't given the right information. Like that's pretty much what it is.
I am so excited to be having this conversation with you for so many reasons. First, to be connected because I respect, admire, and think you're amazing. Also, you are speaking about things that so many of our community members struggle with, and especially the women. Why is it so difficult for so many speakers, especially women, to say, I love me, I'm amazing?
Right. They'll talk about their girlfriends and they'll talk about they'll promote you like crazy. They'll be your agents, but talk about themselves. First, it's come all the way back to childhood. It's like, oh, it's not polite to talk about yourself and you should play it down. Well, no, in the business world, it's completely different. And a lot of women haven't stepped into that. And I do believe that it is more women than men. And I work with both, but you're right that they, for some reason, will take the back seat and promote somebody else and feel more comfortable with that versus believing in the value they offer. And I think that's really, kind of a gift that I have is believing in clients so that I take on the right people and I make sure that they're right to begin with, especially if I'm doing a one-on-one with them, is I will believe in them more than they believe in themselves. So, I just have to get them to that level of, a little step of confidence and a little more skill set that they have and another step of confidence till they get it and they start feeling comfortable sharing that message that they have with other people.
And that's why we need mentors. And that's why everybody who is listening to this podcast, we're going to give you all the information that you need to reach out to Debbie so that you can have a conversation about her mentoring you, all of her programs, all the things that she can do to help you. We talk about violating principles when it comes to this kind of behavior. And that means you would never, our community would never silence someone else. They would never be judgmental about somebody sharing their story. They would never want somebody to stay quiet or to not share their truth. So why are they doing it to themselves?
Hmm.
It's violating their actual principles about what they believe in the world. And it's the same thing. If we are not speaking about how we can serve an audience, because I'm the credible expert, I'm the authority, I am the expert in this position, we are preventing the person who needs to hear from us from hearing from us. And that is selfish.
It is. And I always say that if you're not promoting yourself and what you have to offer and your services, you're not only ripping yourself off from making the money, but you're ripping off those other people that you could be helping. And if you stepped into this space and you know this yourself is like, once you step into this space, there's a whole bigger responsibility that you take on. And it's bigger than yourself because it becomes, kind of magnifying more experts. To me, it's like creating more people that do the best and be the best that they can to help other people. And I love that whole flow of that synergy is that everybody in this business, especially if they come in for the right reasons, not because I just want to make money and be an expert and I don't want to really give the value. There's experts out there that take advantage of people, and that's not the kind of clients that I have, and that's not what I promote at all, because there is a lot of money to be made in this. But when you come from that place of heart and authenticity and really caring about people, you automatically start gaining more clients and referrals, and they never want to leave you because that feeling is so dynamic. And you just go, yeah, I'm just helping them, having conversations. But these conversations are, to them, these are their mentors. These are things that are like shifting and changing their mindset, shifting and changing their business constantly. And we need that lifeline to that. It's almost like this drug of like, what am I going to do without you? Right. I go, you're ready to fly. You can go fly by yourself a little bit, but it's like, but I want a little lifeline to you because I want to, run some things by you. I'm still learning this. And I think we all take our level of expertise for granted, of much of what we know, that other people would like, well, that's the basics. People would know that, but not necessarily the case at all.
Right, and that's what's so remarkable is that you own your expertise and you own the value that you're bringing with your clients, and you're comfortable knowing that clients can stay with you for years and years and years. And I've had mentors that I've stayed with for 3 plus years. I have clients who are continuing to work with me ongoing year after year after year, because there's always a level of deeper that you can go. And I also want to just express my appreciation that you are speaking about authentic, mindful, thoughtful mentoring, coaching, business, while also acknowledging that you want to make a lot of money and that those two things can coexist.
Most
I
definitely.
want our listeners to get super comfortable with the fact that these two things can coexist, and it does not make you bad, wrong, selfish to want to have a good income, the one you deserve, the one that is well paid, so that you can live the life of your dreams and have whatever it is you desire. So speak to that a little bit for our listeners, Debbie.
Really, and it starts with building your value, is knowing what, the deliverable, the outcome, the ROI that you can give to somebody, and knowing that value. And once you really have stepped into that value and knowing it, because you've had case studies and successful people, and you talk about your students. I love telling my stories about my students, and that gets me jazzed again. It reminds me the value that I have, and it will never make me sell myself short. And that's one of the things I learned very early on in my 20s in business. Is My first mentor was my dad, because I got into a family business and bought into that at 19. But he said you never have to discount your services, just as long as you're giving great value. You never have to discount what you're doing. And that stuck with me all those years. And so, if you want to raise your prices, raise your value. I always give people a
Mm,
little bit more than they expect. Like, I do a lot of personal VIP days. People come to my home, stay in my guest house. It's like the ultimate experience of being with your mentor. And I always wow them with these experiences, make them feel like a VIP the second they get here, because that's the experience I would want. And I think that when you work with people, it's like you want to know what they want, but you also want to say what would really wow them, what would really blow them over. Like, as far as like, this was so much more than just a conversation I had with you. I had this experience that's life changing. And you've moved
yeah,
me from here to like, 6 months to a year down the road, like in one day. That's
that's
pretty
incredible.
valuable.
Yes, and I think that I would love to know if you're willing to share more details about your VIP day experience, but I'll share with you first. I did a VIP day for the first time ever, probably 6 years ago. It was $15,000, and I had to fly myself to and from LA. So not only did I spend $15,000 for one day with a coach, which I thought was, it blew my mind that I was willing to do that, but I had a knowing that I wanted to invest in this way.
Mhm.
I'd never spent that much on coaching ever, and it was for one day. And I flew 6,000 miles on an airplane, paid for my trip, and I came back and paid for that 5 times
Oh, yeah.
because of that day. That's the power of this kind of investment in
It
yourself.
Right, it doesn't matter how much you've invested, it's what is the return on investment. So, same thing when I was learning, I'd learned the skill of speaking, getting paid, then I had to learn the skill of speaking and selling, pretty much as a survival mode, when the market changed in the business. And I met someone that had learned to be on the big stages and was selling big numbers, and I'm like, "How did you learn this?" She just said, "I hired a coach and I paid him 25,000." And I said, "Who do I make the check out to? Because I'm hiring you right now." And he went through every single thing and watched every word I had and watched every slide. And I took that and 2 months later turned that into 135,000 with 20 people in a room. So it don't matter what you've invested; it's just what you get on the other end, and then you can monetize it over and over and over again once you've had that skill and that knowledge.
Right. I love this conversation so much. I'm so excited. Let's talk about the other version of that, because I know people are thinking here, well, I can't do that, or I've invested before and I didn't have an ROI. I have had clients who don't do the work. How do you serve them?
I have clients that I would say they do the work to extent as they can do it, right? If they're
Yeah.
still stuck in their mindset, if they're
Yeah.
sabotaging themselves after they've done all that, then I suggest they go somewhere else and won't take their money anymore. And I have a client like that. I love her to death. I've changed her dramatically from where she was, but she still wants to keep giving me more money. I'm like, no, you need to go make some money now. It's like you've done the work, you changed. Let's monetize this. And I actually gave her money back for a VIP day that she had coming up in a couple months. And I said, "Here's everything you need to do. Do all these things. Start making some money. Then I'll let you invest more money with me because it's like, that's rarely happens because people start monetizing. But again, a lot of this was a lot of heady stuff that she hadn't dealt with, a lot of fears, and so." She's got to get past those, and she's gotten a lot, moved a lot. But I'm not a personal life coach; I'm a business
Right.
coach, and so when I see that, I want to see your momentum and see you really implementing that the work that I did because we all want that, right? We don't want to have to just take somebody's money and know that they're not putting it together, that they've not done the work because we know this works. We've made the investments, we've done we've had the coaching, and we learned to say, and I am not a good student, but when I want to learn something, I'm a great student, right? Like not a good student in school, like having to learn something, but when I want to learn it and I know what the outcome can be, I'm like a sponge. And I think that everybody in this business needs to be a sponge to learn. And if you've got a smart coach or consultant that's a mentor that's been there before, walk the talk, done it, do everything they tell you to do. That's how I was successful in the retail business with those mentors that I had. I did everything they told me, and then I blew my business up. And people are like, "Oh my gosh, you're amazing. Look what you did. You're so successful." And I'm like, I just followed their lead. Like, yeah, it wasn't really, I wasn't brilliant back then. I was just doing the work, right?
Right. Putting yourself in the room with somebody who's ahead of you, who knows more than you, doing what they suggest. And when you are the mentor, knowing that the value you're providing your client is enough and that they need to apply what they've learned so that they can be successful. And if you're in a situation where your client is not doing what you're suggesting, kick them out of the nest. You know they can fly with everything that you've given them. I love everything that you're saying.
Yep, and I call that bless and release. But that, that doesn't happen very often. The majority of my clients are just, rocking it and they're just implementing it and they're learning it. I have one client, he never knew how to be a speaker. He was an entrepreneur. He owned a salon for 40 years, hair salon, but now he can go on a stage, not even getting paid, just waive his fee, get on a stage, do a 45-minute, 60-minute keynote, and he will walk away with leads that he will close consistently over six figures, like just from leads, getting him to a call. Like he learned that from me. He had no idea. And so he had no idea he'd make the kind of money he made and love
Yeah.
what he's doing so much. So yeah, when you see people making that much money, and like some mentors say, "Oh, I can help you make a six-figure day," like a six-figure year, he's making six-figure days. Like he never realized he could do it. I knew he could do it because I did it when I didn't know I could do it. So it's like this works. Just follow it. Just do this. It will work for you.
It will work. You are clearly the expert and authority in business and positioning and coaching people and
Thank
using the
you.
language waive his fee. Everybody who's listening, you've heard me say that before. You do not speak for free, but you could waive your fee. I love that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Amazing. Are you ready for some fast talk, Debbie?
Sure.
All right. What's your favorite book currently?
What I would say currently, I still always go back to what book shifted my whole mindset around business was E Myth, Michael Gerber, so many years ago. Like that stayed with me forever. So I always consider that still one of my favorite books for anybody that wants to think more like an entrepreneur and really doesn't think about that through systems and processes. And I've ran my business like that ever since. When I started getting into speaking on like influence and promoting yourself, I read a book called Maximum Influence. I don't know how many years old that one is, but it's the 12 Universal Laws of Powerful Persuasion by Kurt Mordison. And I loved that it was actually like kind of a science of what influence is about because experts, authorities are all about influence. Selling is about influence. Being on the platform is influence. So I've read this book many, many times over and used many pieces from it, but added my own twist from that. So I would say, they're not newer books, but they're books that have really made an impact for me.
Amazing. And we're going to put all this in the show notes, everybody, so you can read those books as well. Who's your favorite speaker and why, Debbie?
Well, it used to be Barbara DeAngelis when she was my mentor because that's what I needed. I wanted to do personal development at that time. And then when I want to learn sales, it was, Jeffrey Gitomer and Joe Girard and all the way back to Zig Ziglar, So
Mm,
I think I know when you're an expert and you're always growing, you're always learning, you don't ever turn that off. Like you always got to be at the top of your game. So there's always going to be another level. I mean, I've done years of personal development work. I've read almost every book on marketing and sales and stuff, but it's where I want to learn at that time, where it's important to grow my business. So that changes consistently.
amazing. How do you memorize when you're speaking?
I don't, I don't memorize. I know my stuff well enough. And that's really when you know you got it. Like,
Mm,
you can ask me any question on sales, or excuse me, on speaking, speaking to sell, doing your own live events, doing a world tour, VIP days, multiple income streams like that. I mean, I've got an answer for it because I've done it all for all those years, right? And I've taught it. So knowing that I've always have an answer is really comforting. Like, knowing that it doesn't matter what somebody's going to ask, I'm going to have an answer for that. So I don't really memorize that except the first couple sentences because I don't want to memorize it too much because then I'm not going to tap in. See, I got to go to heart right away and I got to get the audience
mm,
involved and I've got to get that. So I know what those first couple sentences are that actually allows the butterflies that we all have to fly in formation because you all need them for energy as we speak, but just enough to get that going. And then kind of when I do think about those, it doesn't come from a memory, it comes from more of a visual. So I think about the audience. So I will always go and see a room to get a visual before I go to sleep the night before. And then I visualize that whole opening. And then once that opening connection is there, the rest just flows.
amazing. We have that in common. All right. What do you do the day before you speak?
Always looking at my PowerPoint slides, tweaking them one word here and there, better, make it better because that's kind of your visual background. Going over the details with the client. I have a speaking engagement next week that I didn't put on my schedule and it was double booked. I'm like, okay, how do I figure that one out? I mean, luckily it was the same town. I figured it out, but that's never happened before. But it was like the detail, little things like when should I arrive? When should, how many people are going to be there? I really get, again, that visual in my head of what to expect. So there's never any questions. And then I always arrive early because, there's every little thing that has to be done. So it doesn't matter how many years I've been doing it. I never, ever wing it.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. That's not a pro. Amazing. What is the podcast you're currently obsessed with?
I really was liking Jeffrey Gitomer's sales. I was just on his recently, and I like his edge, and I like that he just allows you to like go off and be your own person. Any of those podcasts where they're conversations like we're having today, those are always my absolute favorite. So I'm gonna have to add you to my absolute favorite list now.
Oh, that's so nice. That means a lot to me. This conversation has been amazing. I am so grateful that you joined us today, Debbie, to be a featured guest on the Big Talk podcast. Where can our listeners get in touch with them? And I know you also have something that you're going to offer them today.
Right. To learn more about what I do, you can go to my website, debbieallen.com, just like the choreographer, it's spelled the same way, DEBBIEALLEN.com. Simple to find out about my online programs that I do, mentoring programs. I do a lot of free online events, a lot of education for my clients. So that's there. And then also I want to send you to a website for expert positioning. Makes sense. Expertpositioningsuccess.com. So if this sounds like a fit for you, you want to take your expertise and create other incomes from it. There's a short 30-minute video, and then there's an action guide. And one of the most wonderful things that I love sharing with that action guide is there's a one-page business plan where you can actually put in income streams that you want to create, how much money you want. So you have a visual of your business for the year versus trying to go from chasing one client to the next. So that's all in there. And actually, you can download my newest book on that same page for free, Expert Positioning. So it's all right there, expertpositioningsuccess.com. Couple $100 worth of great gifts for you.
That's amazing. We're going to put all of this in the show notes for everybody who's listening. Thank you so much for dropping in with us today. We so appreciate your time. And if you are watching this on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can get all of our latest videos. And for those of you who love this interview, let us know what you loved about it on Instagram. Rate and review. It really helps the algorithms when you do that so that more people can hear this incredible conversation with Debbie. And remember, everybody, your voice matters. We'll see you next time.